bit when I hear people or some critics say, people and culture, it's just giving pizzas or yoga classes or fruit baskets to employees. Yes, these may help a little bit, but this is not well-being inside the organization. It's much bigger.
So welcome everyone back to another episode of Beyond the Couch. So what we always do is that we put leaders, psychologists, mental health professionals on the couch to learn and understand a lot of things from them. And today we are taking, of course, a very unique spin again because we have a people leader from UAE. And the idea today is that we want to understand the depth of leadership and well-being, and particularly also specifically on the regional insights that are happening, especially in the UAE side. So we have Omar. He's the head of people and culture at Coca-Cola Arena. Omar, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking our time to do this.
Thank you so much, Kanika, for also welcoming me in the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So we'll get started. Omar, we're just going to go right into it. And the first thing I'm very interested to, understand from you is what exactly does head of people and culture mean?
So it's in the name, I'm a great believer in an organization that focuses on people and culture. We are a people person. I'm a people person. I always believe people are the most important assets inside the organization, going out of the traditional mentality where it was always the money is the biggest asset. Yes, money is an important aspect, but people are the bigger aspect inside the organization. So this changes between one organization and the other. Some have 30% focus, 30% of this asset is on people. Some are greater, some are slower. But then in the end of the day, people are the center of the organization. They are the main reason why organizations succeed. And that's why we need to shift our focuses on people and going away of the traditional HR terminology that we use. And culture, culture is important. Culture is what drives people to achieve greatness inside the organization. And yeah, part of culture is well-being and wellness inside the culture, which we're going to touch bases in a few minutes.
Absolutely, Omar. So, Omar, I think you already led me into my next thing. You said culture is a lot about well-being, and because the focus, I think, is evolving to people now, well-being is becoming a very indispensable term. What we would love to know is, Omar, that what does well-being mean to you?
Okay. Well-being is, to me, it's holistic approach. To me, it's not just making people happy. It's not just touching bases and simple stuff, okay? And also it's not about only mental well-being, which a lot of people think when we talk about well-being, it's regarding mental, for instance. Well-being to me, it's not something that it's nice to have. For me, I think it should be, it's a must to have. It should be embedded in our own lives, not only in the corporate culture, but in our lives, inside our homes, and also in the corporate culture. So it's important to have this inside our lives, inside the company culture, because after all, this leads to employees' happiness, improves to our satisfaction, it leads to productivity. In terms of corporate, it leads to low retentions, higher retention, higher engagement, and being an employer of choice also. So this is, in a nutshell, what's well-being to me.
Beautifully put, Omar. So when you said that, of course, well-being is a bigger umbrella, and I think mental well-being is a part of it.
Yes.
What I'm very curious to know is that how do you see mental well-being evolving in the organization? And I know that the capacity, the leadership role that you play today, it's much more diverse. It's very global in nature. So, A, would love to understand that how are you seeing this mental well-being aspect, the landscape evolving, and especially from an organizational perspective. And the second, if you can throw some light specifically on the UAE region, what are the shifts that you are seeing in the UAE region on this?
So yes, mental well-being is important, as equally important also as to other types of wellness that we have. When I said regarding initially about the holistic approach of wellness, in the end of the day, it's all are interconnected, whether if it's physical, whether if it's financial, mental, social, intellectual, even spiritual, that we live here in the UAE and the MENA regions. All are interconnected, but they all have one thing in common, which is the mental, focusing on your mind, your body, focusing on your self-care, on your career progression, for instance, respecting your surroundings, respecting your peers, working close with your peers, all impact in the end of the day mental wellness. And one of the things that's changing in the mental wellness is the approach that we are focusing on. We're no longer focusing on, for instance, preventive measures. No, we're being more proactive. We're being more and preventive, where we're focusing on burnout, where we're focusing on people who are absent, people who are depressed, people who are having health issues that leads to mental imbalance, for instance. And this is where our approach should be more of a proactive, more of a preventive. We need to focus on, for instance, workload management, psychological safety, which is important, things that we are now also teaching our leaders inside our organizations, coaching culture, for instance, career development. So focusing on this in terms of mental well-being. In the MENA, as you said, or in the UAE, for instance, we have there's some key figures, for instance, where daily stress, in employees is noticed almost 52%, and this is a big number in compared to other parts in the globe. We have in the UAE itself, we have 33% believes that they have high stress in their work, and we have almost 25 a little bit of stress, but they also see loneliness inside their work environment. So in the end of the day, this is something important. This is something we need to tackle. We need to have a proactive approach, proactive and a preventive approach on this. And there's a lot of initiatives that we can do. One of them, for instance, is having key people inside the organization where they can be mental health first aiders, for instance, where they can see behavioral change, where they can notice somebody he's not the person that we know. Sometimes you see a cheerful person, all of a sudden is not. It may be work related, it can be home related, but having these professionals identifying and act as a preventive measure from the beginning will help a lot inside the organizations.
Omar, thank you for sharing that. I really loved the point that you touched upon, that preventively and proactively training leadership, making them very acknowledged about, and the concerns that you shared, loneliness, isolation, burnout. I think these are becoming very evident. Just last week, WHO also released their global report on mental health, and it actually says that 1 billion people in the world definitely have mental health disorders. And when it comes to the MENA region, when it comes to the Asia region, we're actually constituting more than 60%, more than 65% actually of that total 1 billion that we see. So exactly. Those are, of course, very stark figures. Omar, I'm going to put you in a very tough spot here. And this is something that we, even at MindPeers, we always experience this when we work with clients generally. And that question is that still I feel that while everyone understands the growing importance of mental health, what we are still seeing is that there are a lot of leaders who still do not believe that well-being or preventively, especially taking care of mental well-being, can improve performance. I think that understanding or that belief is still not there. And I also see it from another perspective that we know that leadership themselves are so stressed, right? Which is going to be my another question to you. But for now, what do you want to say, or how do you see this when we say that leadership does not a lot of times believe that well-being and performance are related? And how do you suggest something like this can be navigated?
I totally agree with you on this. Unfortunately, we see a lot of these challenges inside the organizations, and some leaders, they don't see it as important, or some of them actually see it as a tick of a box. The other day I was discussing with the professional doctor, talking about mental and physical well-being, where she highlighted we reach a point, currently there's a current trend in certain organizations, of course not all organizations, where it's being known as a well washing. So I told her, what's well washing? It's the first time I hear this term. And she told me that's similar to the term greenwashing, where companies actually started thinking sustainable, and now it's like a tick of a box. Let's just do recycling, for instance, and let's do this just for PR purposes, that yes, we're recycling, we are greenwashing, ticking the box. And this is the problem that we may face, or some leaders are facing. It's not important. Okay, let's just do it. Let's tick this box that we're doing it, but in fact, not believing or not appreciating what it will lead to. So it's what we need to do is we need to highlight this to the leaders. We need to show that prioritizing employees' well-being is not just for PR, but it should really be things that will help the employee, touching like workload, toxic management practices, job security, pay fairness, work-life balance, appreciations or peer appreciations between team members or the employees, focusing on their career growth, focusing on their health or work anxiety. These are all touch points that leaders have impact on. It's not that something that they don't have impact on. These are the touch points that leaders have control on. And believe me or not, numbers can say and statistics that say, once we touch bases on this, we can show a lot of improvements. And it's not just I'm talking about where sometimes I get frustrated a little bit when I hear people or some critics say, people and culture, it's just giving pizzas or yoga classes or food baskets to employees. Yes, these may help a little bit, but this is not well-being inside the organization. It's much bigger. It's making policies around well-being, on how leaders should lead teams, how should they encourage psychological safety, how we can have a coaching culture inside the organization, and once the senior management sees this, it will be a win-win situation for everyone.
I really, really appreciate, and I really like that point that you mentioned, that it's not just about the pizzas and the yoga sessions, it's actually about teaching leadership on how to lead teams and, on
Exactly.
encouraging safety and things like that. Umar, which also brings me to this follow-up. Sorry, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. I always say to all, again, we always developed ever since I began my career 17 years ago. And most recently, I started showing this. I always highlight one important thing, that leaders are the center. Leaders are the ones that drive the culture. Leaders are the ones that creates the culture, and this culture drives the behavior, and this behavior produces the results that we want. So actually, it's the leaders. It all starts with the leader, not with HR. Yes, we're here to support. We're here to initiate the processes, but it's the leaders. Leaders should be more involved in this and not just consider it's a tick in a box or it's an HR related thing.
Lovely. Omar, which brings me to that follow-up question, who takes care of the leaders, right? Because there is so much pressure on the leaders about performance, about driving revenues, about taking care of the team, almost everything. But I think what is very less spoken about is that who is taking care of those leaders? Because I think loneliness, isolation, and I think leaders feel most lonely than ever, right? Because they're right on the top, taking care of things, running everything, making sure nothing breaks. What, in your perspective, can be done to actually take care of the leaders?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a vital, important question. I never thought of this from before. I never tackled this from before, but it's a very important question. I really liked it. Well, after all, also leaders are team members. It's important for people professionals such as myself inside the organizations to focus on the leaders. This is the first point. It's important to bring them in workshops, show them, talk to them about leadership styles, teaching them some skills that relieves this burden. As you grow throughout the organization, this is a funny thing we were discussing one of my peers last time is whenever you grow in the position, they said, I'm feeling myself as an HR person, like team members are approaching me more to solve problems instead of just focusing on the business. But this is the reality. Once you grow in the business, leaders become the person who comes to for suggestions whenever there's conflict. Team members will start approaching the leaders. You're going to see sometimes less focus on work, but more focused to the team, as you've highlighted. But then we need to prepare them for this. Nobody becomes a manager like this. Nobody becomes a leader or a senior executive like this. We need to ensure that the person is ready to assume this role, and not ready not only just because of the skills. It's everything that comes with it. It's the knowledge, the skills, managing teams, understanding teams, being a coaching leader, knowing the differences in leader styles. As you know, there's various types of leadership styles, and there's no right and wrong, but depending on the scenario that you are in, you need to start shift. It's like a car. You shift between these styles based on the scenario that you are with. And once you start developing a leader in such a way, as soon as you also teach or coach the leader to have this coaching mentality, which everybody speaks. I love a lot coaching culture because it empowers team members. It lets them think by themselves, create new ideas, and it also and this is the fact. This is the metrics measurement. Once you are a coaching leader, you're gonna receive less problems and more solutions, and this will help. This will help leaders managing their teams. And we as people professionals, as I said before, we need to keep and having an eye on these leaders, ensure that they're taken care of, instead of just taking the heat and letting the team to relax. And that's the idea of a coaching leader, is not for you taking the heat, is encouraging your team to start thinking and approaching you with solutions instead of problems and so on.
Lovely, Omar. And I think just want to add to the coaching part because you emphasized a lot on that. And I also feel that that's a very intricate thread in the culture that needs to be introduced, which is making leadership coachable and also bringing that specific coaching opportunities for them. And just related to that, Umar, there was a recent research that had happened, World Economic Forum, earlier this year, which said that by 2030, resilience is going to be the topmost skill that employers are going to look for in leaders and in employees generally because of everything, the way it's changing. An important hallmark of leadership is going to be resilience. And I think
Of course.
coaching brings a lot of that. Where I would love to understand is more of a futuristic perspective from you now. There is a lot of talk about intergenerational conflicts that are happening in the workplace, and especially because we talk about Gen Z styles are changing, millennials' expectations are changing. A lot of our clients today say that all the Gen Zs and millennials, they don't want to be called. As soon as a leader calls them, it sort of becomes a big thing for them. They always want to be approached in chat or in writing, or even for that matter, quick fixes or the ability to take criticism in millennials and Gen Zs is evolving a lot. So, having
Absolutely.
said that, what do you think is the future of leadership? What would you like to say to the future leaders, to future people leaders also, not just business leaders, but to future people leaders? How do we navigate this intergenerational gap?
Um, I think I'm just gonna say as one answer is I think we need to have a tailored approach into this. There's no one solution that fits all. I'm talking about this because based on my own experience, is I started my career 17 years ago, and it shifted a lot back then, back in 2007. Now we're in 2025. We have this generation gaps now, and various generations. We have this generation Z and the younger talent that are going to be dominating the workforce a lot. One thing that I learned is there's no one single approach. We need to have, I think, a tailored experiences that considers various generations, various cultures, having people that have differences in mentality. And this is what I say about we need to tackle a different approach, especially in the UAE market, where we have a multicultural market. So we're not talking about just Gen Z or the future generations. We're talking the Gen Z, but the Gen Z where the UAE mentality is different than European mentality, which is different than the Lebanese mentality. So a short answer is we need to have a tailored experience. We need to know and acknowledge that one solution doesn't fit all. We need to focusing increasingly on tying social values with inclusivity, with sustainability approach. We need to listen also to this young generation, see what they request, and to see how we can adapt also based on this. Doesn't mean that okay, what they say or what everything we need to follow what they say, but we need to see how much we need to adapt to their beliefs, to their ideas, to the culture that we have, cultural differences that we have, and we need to have new strategies for the future. That focuses on this and having flexible strategies based on this, not one strategy fixed for all and keep the same policies and procedures in the future. So we need to learn how to adapt on this. I personally learned a lot, for instance, in terms of dealing with different Gen Z. I was always the person, okay, my mind is this. If I speak with this person or that person or person with this generation, they're the same. They completely think differently. So we need to think and approach them on how they think, and something that is very normal to us, it's totally different for them. So we need to look at their point of view and tackle it in this sense.
Great. I think my very key takeaway from what you said here is agility and adaptability. Not
Yes,
100% following what's coming through, but of course, listening and understanding what the change in culture and leadership styles might need from what the newer generations are saying, right? So Omar, coming to mostly to my last question. Earlier in the conversation, you talked about how it's not anymore about ticking the box, like doing mental well-being because hey, we want to tick the box and just maybe do it for PR and stuff like that, but genuinely building a culture of care. Now, what I would love to understand from you is, Umar, that what would you say are, let's say, 1 to 2 things or maybe like a secret sauce that you feel makes a culture of care? It could be related to anything, but what would you say are 1 to 2 important things that make the culture of care?
Empathy in leadership is important. That creates culture of care, and coaching. So these two things that we need to have in culture of care. Empathy, why? Because we need to listen. We need to create this psychological safety for the team members. We shouldn't react directly on what we say, and really focusing on their well-being. In terms of coaching, is letting the team members, hearing them, try to start thinking as leaders, or trying to lead them with empathy, empowering them, unlocking their true potentials, helping them achieve career growth, and enhancing on their performance. So this is the culture that we need to build for the inside the organization.
Amazing. Empathy and coaching.
Yes.
Lovely ones, Omar. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely last thing. What would be your parting thoughts, to people leaders like yourself? What would be that one parting thought you would want to give them? And second, any last thoughts or even recommendations to to everyone in the world related to well-being, whoever would be listening to you through the show, anything that you would want to tell them?
Yeah. So as a leader, we need to always think to the future. We need to adapt to the changes. We need to I always highlight it, put people's first. I always say people are the most important assets inside the organizations. And how to do it is ensuring a workplace well-being, which leads to employees' wellness. So tackling a lot of workplace well-being in terms of leadership, in terms of your missions, visions, and core values, in terms of the culture that you build, the policies that you put in, recognition, reward programs, health and safety measures, and all these workplace well-being that you create will lead to an employee wellness in terms where they can be supportive, they encourage emotional regulations, better quality of thinking, put the employees in high energy levels, being more productive, building this connection with one another, with their colleagues, and building overall employees' wellness. So this is one thing that we need to focus on as people, professionals and our leaders, putting people first.
Thanks, Umar. I think super inspiring to speak to you. I think to me, the clarity of thought that you have and I think your immense belief in future, in adaptability, and my favorite thing also is coaching. I know we're talking for the first time. I heard great things about you from Annie when she spoke to you, but really love that how in your capacity you so much believe in the power of coaching. I think that's becoming so important, especially in the day and age of AI as well. Seeing
Yes.
people the way they are, seeing leaders as humans as well, and then focusing on their upskilling and coaching part. I think that really stood out to me. Um, really appreciate the time, Omar. Thank you so much. It was really lovely talking to you. Thank you again for being part of this.
Thank you, Kanika, for inviting me also. It was really a lovely conversation that we had. Very interesting questions that you have made, and a very interesting topic. I really like this topic, wellness inside the organization, especially where it's, as I said before, it's sometimes taking it for granted, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's important. And thank you for having this. And I think let's hope this goes up to other leaders and encourage them to focus on employee well-being and wellness inside the workplace.
Absolutely. Thank you, Omar.